As I mentioned just moments ago, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down President Biden's attempt to eliminate roughly $400 billion in student loan debt. Well, the Biden administration announced this bailout prior to the 2022 midterm elections, so arguably it may have already served its purpose for the Democrats already. But the court still delivered a strong message about the executive overreach. Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is U.S. Representative Warren Davidson. He serves on the House Financial Services Committee and the House Foreign Affairs Committee, as well as the House Freedom Caucus. He represents the 8th Congressional District of Ohio. Congressman Davidson, always great to see you. Welcome to Washington Watch.
Yeah, Jody, it's always so good to see you. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Well, it's our privilege, and we're honored for all that you have been doing and continue to do. And I want to get your reactions here in a little bit about the 4th of July with all your incredible service, both in the armed service as well as in Congress. But let's jump onto this. You're on the House Financial Services Committee. Overall, give me your reaction to the Supreme Court decision today striking down the student loan bailout.
Yeah, I mean, I think you alluded to the real purpose that the Biden administration had in the beginning. They know they don't have the constitutional authority to just decide, hey, we're going to give away $400 billion. That's Congress's job. Congress has done, dumber things with money over the years, but we do it after we vote. The president doesn't have the unilateral authority to just take this kind of action. And it's horrible policy. I mean, the principle needs to be that you took out a loan. It's your obligation to repay the loan. And the court, frankly, agreed with that basic logic. It really isn't more straightforward than that.
Well, it's amazing that we have to go all the way to the Supreme Court to get that kind of logic, that kind of common sense. But you yourself mentioned, I mean, legislation is dealt with the legislative branch of the government, not the executive branch. I think most people, including the Supreme Court, obviously recognize that this bailout was illegal. But give me your thoughts. I think even Democrats would admit, along with all of us, that we have skyrocketing educational costs that are taking place in our country. Do you think this decision now could potentially spur a reevaluation of these costs, maybe some sort of reforms or some innovation, some ideas to help the rising cost of education?
Yeah, I think I'm hopeful of that. And look, let's go back to what they're not saying. Never in this process did the Biden administration or the people championing student debt forgiveness say, really this got worse when the government took over the student loans. Let's stop making these bad loans. But that's the real origin of it. Under Dodd-Frank, the federal government took over the student loans program. The Congressional Budget Office, who's, notoriously bad at economic modeling, continues to do the economic modeling for Congress. They said, we think we'll save about $63 billion if the federal government takes over student loans. The reality is we have roughly $500 billion worth of, student debt that we think people are going to default on. And that's not really good for the students. It's not good for anyone, really. What it is good for are the universities. So they've got no price pressure. They just keep raising prices. And everyone says, it's so unaffordable, we should subsidize it. And a subsidy really doesn't do anything except cost taxpayers money. And the example I always use is, let's say you and I enter into negotiation and say, how much for a semester of college? And we shake hands, we say, all right, $10,000. We're like, great, make it 15. We're like, what do you mean? We just shook hands and said that it was going to be $10,000. And you want to renege on the deal and make it 15. How are you going to do that? Oh, no, the federal government will kick in 5. With extra subsidies. And that's how subsidies work. It just drives up inflation. And if you look, healthcare, housing, and education are things that keep going up at the fastest rate. And they're some of the most subsidized things that we have in our economy.
And all of that, we know that at the end of the day, it's the taxpayer that ends up paying for all these subsidies. And that reminds me, you were on with me a couple of months ago, I believe it was April, and we were talking about at that time there were some new mortgage lending rules that this administration, the Biden administration, was putting forward that basically was making responsible borrowers redistribute their wealth and give money to those with bad credit. And you actually refer to that as legal theft, which I thought was a great, very descriptive terminology about it. But you also had mentioned that you would hope there would be some lawsuits about it. But you, when all is said and done, you recognizing that that whole thing was unconstitutional, you yourself put forth some legislation to undo this, and it had some major progress this past week. Tell us about that.
Yeah, last Friday we passed the Middle Class Borrowers Protection Act, and it undoes what the Biden administration came up with. Pretty bad idea. Part of it, we got them to withdraw just by, making them a little more famous for it. They had a plan that was supposed to take effect on August 1st, that if you have a lot of income and very little debt, then you can pay a higher rate for your mortgage than you would otherwise pay, so that you could subsidize somebody who has low income and high debt. Now, that's a really bad idea. That is truly a redistribution of wealth. But the part that took effect on May 1st is a credit score redistribution. And you have lots of people with modest means who are responsible with their credit. They pay their bills on time. They live within a budget, and they wind up with good credit scores. And they're paying right now more money than they would have in April. So on May 1st, these rules took effect. And if you have a 680 credit score or better, you're going to pay a higher rate, and it's going to benefit people who had a 680 credit score or lower. They're going to pay a lower rate than they were paying prior to this. And it's a horrible policy. Our bill undoes that. And so hopefully it'll get taken out. We had 14 Democrats join us. It's too bad it wasn't all of them. But hopefully the Senate will take it up and Joe Biden will sign it.
Well, congratulations on moving that through the House. That's a big step in the right direction for sure. It just sounds to me like all this penalizing Americans for playing by the rules, for being responsible. It's people are having enough of this type of mentality. And really, this is, wouldn't you agree, just another attempt, another example, I should say, of the left trying to buy votes with other people's money?
100%. They're basically targeting demographics and saying, oh, well, this will hurt your people. It won't hurt our people. Let us take from your people and give to ours. And here, like I say, it's not even clear that this is an income-based thing. It's people that don't pay their bills on time that wind up with bad credit. So it's not even really rational. And they say, well, it's just to plus up Fannie and Freddie. So it really isn't even going directly to the Treasury. They say, oh, well, we have to get money for Fannie and Freddie, which were private companies that the government took over back in 08, 09, because the government did dumb programs like this. And we had a major problem in the market. Obviously the 08, 09 financial crisis overwhelmingly due to government intervention in the mortgage market.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, and so appreciative of you and your work and moving this forward. I tell you, as we move in, we've only got a 30 seconds or so left, but as we move into this holiday weekend, Independence Day approaching next week, I know, Warren, Congressman Davidson, you are an amazing patriot. You served extremely well in our military. You're also a student of American history and now a U.S. representative. Give us some of your reflections on our country with July 4th approaching.
Well, as the saying goes, we're the land of the free and the home of the brave, but we're only going to stay the land of the free if we stay the home of the brave. And the Declaration of Independence, which is what we really celebrate here with July 4th, has the famous phrase, we pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor to the cause of creating this, independence from the British Empire, or really freedom, reclaiming our freedom. And I think that's what we have to do. We have to reclaim.
It's only a republic. To leave it there. Congressman Warren Davidson, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. We appreciate it.